Hey, so welcome to this really quick little summary of what this whole fake health news course is going to be about. I've essentially broken down evaluating fake health news into 5 factors, and those factors directly lead to increasing your credibility and having you be seen as an authority in your field because you're not spreading fake news. So the first factor is to stay within your scope. Now, we've all heard of people who give nutrition advice, but they're not trained in nutrition. And, people are always speaking out of their scope. And it doesn't, if you've invested in your education, if you have certifications and qualifications, then that makes you an expert in that area. So rock that area, but don't necessarily step out into all of these other areas that are not within your scope. You have qualifications. You are a wellness professional or a health educator or a very health conscious person. And I'm so excited that you are looking at this fake health news course. And consider, for the first factor of being credible, you have qualifications, and they enable you to help certain people reach certain health goals. They enable you to make certain recommendations. They enable you to help educate the public and your audience, which are everybody who reads your blogs and your website pages and your newsletter, as well as your clients. And that is my number one quick but honest take on credibility, and staying within scope is number one. Here's an interesting quote. Stay in your lane, because if you are good enough, people will move to you. So be the best, most credible authority in your field, and people will find you. So the second factor for credibility is to be open to new information. Now, when I say open, I don't mean consider it like you got to change every time, because that is the opposite of what we're going to teach in this course on identifying fake news and boosting credibility. What I'm saying is, when something comes up, don't dismiss it before you spend 10 seconds evaluating it. So just spend 10 seconds, which we'll talk about in a minute. So being open just means you will consider it for a few seconds. It is necessary for your credibility, because I do share a story in this module on how learning a bit more and reading a study actually kind of blew everything I thought out of the water on a certain topic. So if I was never open-minded, I never would have been a scientist who ended up studying holistic health and becoming a holistic nutritionist. If I wasn't open-minded, I would still think the things that I learned and was taught or heard for a long time without being open to anything. So it's necessary for your credibility, but of course I'm never going to tell you to immediately accept something, because we're going to go through these steps. But also, as I'm saying in the step, is don't immediately dismiss it, even though it goes against what you believe or what you know to be true. Just don't make an immediate impulsive reaction. So the art and science of asking questions is the source of all knowledge. The third factor for credibility is to actually spot red flags. So this was such a fun module and a bunch of red flags that I put together. I love it. But the idea with this is that you're going to give this new piece of information, this health news, 10 seconds. 10 seconds, and it's going to see if it passes the red flag test. So some of the red flags look at if there's something suspicious about this particular item that would make it extra kind of towards the fake side. And if it doesn't have a lot of those red flags, then maybe it passes your 10-second rule, and you can go on to actually evaluate more of the source of the information. So the third factor, spotting red flags. I have a handy checklist, and it was so fun. Now, of course, this comes from extraordinary evidence. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. So if it's an extraordinary claim, is it like totally out of the blue, totally vague, or does it maybe have some extraordinary evidence behind it, which we go over in the course. The fourth critical factor for credibility is to be reasonably skeptical. Reasonably skeptical. So as I said, just because it passes a 10-second rule, you then kind of dig into a bit more of the references and where the information came from and how strong it is. So what I mean is that new studies are being published every day, and the news, including not just traditional news, but social media and internet searches, it's available 24/7. So being reasonably skeptical means that you kind of look at it, it passes your 10-second test, and then it's like, all right, so we can dig a little bit deeper because it doesn't seem to be totally fake immediately. So we're going to talk a bit about how to evaluate a study to see its merit. It's kind of a nerdy module. I will not kid you, but what we do is we look at the 5 different types of studies that are done and how much weight each one has when it comes to making health recommendation on your blog or your programs or for your readers and clients. So in order to do this, you would always ask for references. I have people contacting me often saying, oh, look at what I heard. And I'm like, okay, what are the references? Like, things can have credible references, but then be misrepresented in the media by, you know, the person writing the piece who maybe doesn't quite understand it as well. So finding out where the information came from is so important, and then being reasonably skeptical of it. And then, as I mentioned, we're going to know what studies are strong when it comes to making health recommendations. And I have a hint, those are usually the ones done in people, not necessarily the ones done in animals or in labs in a test tube or individual people's experiences, but we will go into that in the 4th module. So being open-minded is merely just the willingness to consider evidence, not the willingness to accept claims with no evidence. And the 5th and last factor for credibility is, and identifying fake news. I'm kind of making them one and the same because to me, you know, fake news is something that lowers your credibility, and having credible news and good quality health information increases your credibility. So I really see them on the same plane. So then the 5th factor is, how does this new study fit into the balance of the evidence? Like, how? Is it one tiny piece of the puzzle? Is it a review of many pieces of the puzzle? Is it a good quality study? Is it not good? Like, how does it, like, what do we already know? So that when we look at the study and we see how good the study is, like, where does it fit in with the rest of the puzzle, which is this health question that we're answering? So the questions that we're going to go through is like, what do we already know about this topic? And how much does this new piece weigh with what we already know? Is it huge or is it a small piece of the puzzle? Like, where is it in the puzzle? Because a lot of the controversies in the media are blown out of proportion, and they're not real controversies at all. Things are taken and they're kind of spun or misinterpreted or extrapolated, and all of a sudden you have these controversies. This is controversial, and nobody knows whether, you know, coffee is good for you or not. But it's not a real controversy because these things that are being quoted are either really low quality studies or they're really amazing quality studies, but they all, on the surface of looking at the media and social media and news, they all seem the same. So I'm going to help you dig through to understand whether it's a tiny piece of the big puzzle and what we already know, or a larger one. So the last slide is a quote that finalizes the 5th module, and what I love is, a wise man proportions his belief to the evidence. And of course, I don't just mean men, I mean people, but I won't change the quote because this was a quote. So in my words, a wise person proportions their beliefs, his or her beliefs, to the evidence. And that is what this course is. So I hope that it got you interested in this course and you want to move further, then let's do it.